Welcome to the Schools of Excellence podcast, where we transform everyday leadership struggles into powerful legacies that impact generations. I'm your host, Chani Wilshansky, a 20-year veteran of school leadership who has helped hundreds of school leaders achieve what many thought was impossible through our signature programs, School Leadership HQ and Enrollment Engine. With our battle-tested frameworks and blueprints, leaders have achieved 90% parent retention, 50% less staff turnover, 15% improved profit margins, and increased enrollment by 25%. My mission is simple: to revolutionize school leadership by elevating the skills, the habits, and mindset of passionate leaders ready to create lasting change. Join me as we build your legacy of excellence, one transformative conversation at a time. What is a specific story that really just reminds you of the early days in your journey as a school owner?
Oh gosh. I mean, we kind of got thrown to the wolves. So we opened in July of 2020. So we were right after the pandemic started. So we had to kind of fight tooth and nail to be able to figure everything out as we went through that process. And I feel like just figuring out how things were going to evolve and everything moved at warp speed.
Yeah.
I think when you go through something and you, for lack of a better term, something kind of so traumatic as starting a business at that time frame, you really realize how you need to invest in putting the right people in the right seats, but also how you need to find the right contacts and the right context. So I had started doing a coaching right away when we had started doing the business. And it was one of those things where it was like, I knew that I needed the right people to kind of guide me through that process. I didn't want to sit there and learn something the hard way after 10 years and then be like, oh, I've saved this money by not paying for somebody to teach me how to do this, but I've spent all of this time, because that time is money in the long run. Yeah. And I think just looking at the evolution from where we were at that point and the information that we were getting and kind of how it was kind of that base level stuff versus kind of where we are now to the depth and really just the deeper level thinking and the context that we have really dove into. I think before it was very like, hey, here's your handbook. Here's how you're going to do things. Here's the base level of just copy, paste.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think now it really reflects the fact that we're not, it's not a copy paste anymore. It's a, hey, I'm not going to give you a copy paste because that's not going to work for you. You have a very different situation than a lot of other people. You can't be learning from somebody who has a nonprofit because you are a for-profit business. So your numbers are going to be different. You can't learn from somebody who has a center in Massachusetts because you have different rules. You have different demographics. You have different things like that, where I think that just having that mindset shift in the short 4.5 years that we have been open, really, I think is probably the biggest thing that points out to me, and just how you literally can have a 180 evolution in such a short amount of time. And I think that truly is a testament to how we have evolved and how that coaching has evolved with us as well.
So let's unpack that a little bit deeper here, because, you started at base level. So but you had the insight and understanding you needed support. So you went and got support, but then you were like, okay, I need something different. And that's when you reached out to Schools of Excellence. So there's so many layers to transformation, and we can have a half a day conversation about all the different highs and lows of just the journey. But if you can speak to even just one specific story or anecdote that sticks with you of this moment of relief of this is different. This is going to be different. This change is not going to be a quick fix. This is sustainable.
Yeah. So I think it kind of is a 2-part series with it. So I remember being on a coaching call with one of the former places that I was doing coaching, and I had voiced hey, this is something that we're going through. And I remember somebody just regurgitating information. And it was one of those hey, this is the laundry list of things to do. And it was slow down, just give me a second so that I can tell you, I have done those things. I need somebody who's going to help me, work through a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And I remember just feeling very frustrated and not heard in that moment. Yeah. And that was kind of one of those moments where I was okay, this is obviously not going to be the right fit in this moment. I need something where I'm going a little bit deeper. And then I had met you when we were at a conference, and I remember sitting in this room and we were talking about a thing, and I was oh, I know the answer to her question. I raised my hand and I was so confident, and I said my answer out loud. And for again, this is going to probably sound terrible, but it's the best thing that I needed in that moment. You looked at me and your response to me was like, that's like essentially like the dumbest thing you could have said right here. And I was just like, oh my God, you're right. That was the dumbest thing I could have said. And it was like talking about like solving problems or, oh, it was what is your superpower? And I was like, oh, I'm the best problem solver. I solve everybody's problem.
I remember that. That's what it was. Yes.
And you were like, no, like you can't solve everybody's problem. You're ruining your center. And I was like, oh my God, I am. And it was the first time that I finally like felt like somebody was challenging me. They weren't just giving me a rule book. Like you were making me like stop and slow down and think a little bit harder. And I think my husband was sitting right next to me. And I think he was finally happy that somebody like knocked me down a peg in front of this room of people. And I think that was like that moment where I was like, okay, this lady knows what she's talking about. And I don't want to be surrounded by yes people. I want to be surrounded by the people who are going to make me think a little bit harder. I want the people who are going to force me out of my comfort zone because that's where that growth is going to happen. And I've never wanted to be the conventional person that's going to fit inside the box. Like I want to take that box and I want to build it into something amazing.
Okay. So it's so interesting because I'm really being transported back to that living room, right? Back to that area. So you're touching on here a couple of key things that I want to reflect back to the people that are listening. So our company is called Schools of Excellence, and there's so many definitions to excellence, and everyone kind of has their own interpretation. And I have a few different, ways that I look at it. But one of the things in the way that you just said is being a brand of excellence, and the way that we communicate with our clients means that we challenge their assumptions, we challenge their beliefs, we challenge the way that they're looking at something, and that can feel deeply uncomfortable for some people. And that's why we're so selective and specific about who comes into this world, because it's not for everyone. Not everyone is ready to be challenged. Because again, like you had said, it was like, whoa, that was uncomfortable, but it was also freedom. And for the right person, discomfort is freedom.
Yes. And I think that so many people live in this, I don't want to make somebody feel uncomfortable. I don't want to say the thing that is going to hurt their feeling. Trust me, I am the queen of being a people pleaser. And
Not anymore. No, not anymore.
We're refining.
Not anymore.
Where I was like, that was just such, like you said, it was a freeing moment. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is one of those things where this can help me figure it out. And I remember just like sitting there for like the next, I think your talk was like an hour and a half, and just like, I was still continuing to listen and engaging, but I was just like in that thought of like, well, if problem solving isn't my superpower, then what is?
Yeah. So this is such a great segue to the next thing, because you and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago on enrollment, and I'd ask you to come on to share some of your experience around just the different strategies that you've done with enrollment. When we talk about, before we dive into that, I actually want to share. So the 5 gears, talk about your experience when we introduced the 5 gears into the company as a framework, and how that's created, what that's really created for you. Because I don't want to ask you what it's created. Like, I don't want to tell you what it's created. I want you to share what it's created for you, and then we'll dive into your superpower, because I think that's a better angle.
Yes. So a lot of the times I think when you're working with coaches and stuff like that, they always want to make everything seem very complicated and complex, because they want you to feel like they have to be smarter than you. You need them for something. They need to be able to pull all this information and give you this PhD level information, when really so much of it is you are just overthinking everything. And I love the fact that like with the 5 gears, it just simplifies it, because I'm either looking at something way too basic or I'm looking at something way too complicated. And I just need that person to tell me like right in the middle, where the 5 gears was one of those things where I'm looking at this very big picture and I just need to be dialed back down, where I like the fact that like it's simple. It's 5 things. Look at 5 things and only 5 things for each. Stop caring about this, and this, and this. It fits into the 5. Zone in on the 5. And then even less than that, now you're going to zone into 2. And even if you don't even need 2, just zone into 1. And I hang out in my 1. I'm always looking at the financial side of it. That's kind of the one that I have spent, I'm going to say, all of my time in. And I think that that's probably just because financial security and making sure that that is kind of where we're at, especially with starting when we did with it being in the pandemic. That's always going to be where we're going to kind of hang out. And I think I'm always going to be a little extra attached to. I think even if I add another gear to it, financials will always be something where I'll kind of be attached.
Yes. Okay. So much to unpack here, right? The first thing you had said of and now I can't remember who said this quote, but it's like, ask me to speak for an hour, I need to prepare for X. And ask me to speak for 6 minutes, I need like 7 hours to prepare, right? Because to make something simple, it actually requires higher levels of intelligence. When something is complicated, it actually means that the person who's teaching it hasn't fully understood it or grasped it to make it simple to the person they're communicating to. And this is why I'm obsessed. Again, excellence is also about ease and simplicity, because you cannot be in the pursuit of excellence if everything has 90 steps. It's just the level of mental fatigue and exhaustion and stamina that it takes to take one step is way too much. And I'm like, now there's 90 more. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm out. So thank you for reflecting that back. And so when we start a business, our superpower is our multitasking, our problem solving, our firefighting, are all of these things, because we're running on sheer willpower. We're the bulldog, and like, we just take care of everything. And now I've seen a totally different evolution, but I want you to share where you've seen the evolution of just who you're becoming, because you're still becoming.
Yes. So I went from the girl who had to solve everybody's problems. Like, I was going to dive in and I was going to do this and I was going to do this and I was going to do this. And I was doing that so that I was making everybody happy. And I remember in that conversation, you were like, you're taking the ability for everybody to grow away from them. And I kind of reflected on that. And I was like, I've always kind of had the same concept with kids. Like, I'm not going to help my kids do this because I want them to almost have that little bit of, like, I'm there to support them, but I want them to have that little bit of struggle because they have to figure out that they're capable of doing these amazing things. And then I was sitting there thinking, like, why am I taking that away from my staff? Why am I taking that away from my team? They are capable of these amazing things and they're so fantastic. Why would I take the ability for them to problem solve away from that? Like, yes, I am there to support when they hit that roadblock and they absolutely need me. But until they hit that point, like, I need to give them that capability. So just kind of stepping back and being like, hey, I'm here if you need me, but this is kind of what the end goal is, and giving them those capabilities and just the growth and the confidence that we have seen from that. And just like the pride that then I feel as I get to watch them like hit those goals, and even just like watching them create their own goals. I've always been the person where I've been very goal driven, and I never necessarily like saw people who were like super like, oh, we have to do this, we have to do that. Mm-hmm. Now I'm coming, like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, hey, we should probably look at enrollment. And the girls are like, we already have those 4 spots filled. And I'm like,
yes.
Okay. JK, I guess I'll just.
What is that reflective of, right? You came in, you're like, I think we should, and they're like, oh, we've already got it taken care of. What is that signaling about the quality of systems and rhythm that you've created in your center?
I think that it just shows that they are as bought into it as I am. And I think that that's something that has always kind of scared me. I remember I was watching something where Gary Vee was talking, is like, as a business owner, you're never going to find a group of people who is going to be as bought in as you. And I was like, okay, I've got to like wrap my head around that. I have to wrap my head around that. And the truth is you can, you really can. And I'm extremely fortunate. My admin team is phenomenal. And of those, like those 4 girls are just as bought into this place and would do anything for this place as I would. Just like we would do anything for each other as well. And they want this place to succeed just as much as I do for their families and my families. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to watch that grow together.
I want to go back to the financial gear, because you've been through many seasons of like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough. But then, you know, we'll kind of get into a conversation, be like, oh, 1 second, actually, we're fine. So, or whatever it is, right? And you kind of consistently have, you know, almost like King Daka, like been on that like giant roller coaster from Six Flags. So I'd love for you to share how your mindset has evolved financially, because money is it's one of the 3 forbidden topics, right? Like, no one wants to talk about it. So we're going to talk about it here. How has the mindset evolved in your relationship with money?
So money like is one of those like taboo topics where people don't talk about it. And as being an employee, I remember looking at a business and being like, wow, they must be making so much money. Why are we only making X amount and things like that? So I remember coming into it as a business owner and I was like, I want to be transparent about this. I want to have those discussions so people understand, hey, this is the money that's coming in. You guys can obviously sit there and calculate that because you know what tuition is. You guys know how much money can potentially be coming in, but also you have the perspective of this is how much money is going out. And very transparent with our admin team and even like our normal staff is like, hey, this is what our rent is. This is what payroll is. And having those discussions. And we kind of have gotten to the point where I think that transparency definitely helps them understand like, hey, we have to take care of the stuff that we have because we don't have this discretionary income. but it's also not a scenario of you guys can't ever tell me that you guys need extra paper or scissors or things like that. We just have to be respectful with it and be good stewards of that finance.
Yes.
But then I also am the person where I want to be prepared if we're ever going to end up in a situation where like down the road, something is going to happen. So like I want to make sure I have like, I call it my money calendar. So that calculates out what my balance in my bank account is going to be for the next year. So I always try to go at least once a month, and I go through and I will recalculate based on how much money we spent this month, what stuff has gone out, what is coming in versus what kids are coming in. And that will kind of like tell us. And then I can tell the girls like, hey, this is where we're sitting. This is what we're looking like. So then they have that information of like, hey, if we add 2 more kids, this is what we're going to look like. And it's nice to be able to have that information because this past fall we had kind of our first pre-K class that left, and we did our tuition increase. It was the first time that we actually like lost, I think we had lost 8 kids. Every time that we've done a tuition increase, we've maybe lost 1 or 2 kids. So that was kind of one of those moments where we're like, oh crap. And we saw that tuition dip down a lot lower than we wanted to. So then I kind of went into a spiral and I was like, okay, if we don't fix this and we don't fix it fast, like we've got 1 year till we're all out of luck. And I mean, it was a year, but it's still to know like, hey, a year, that's only 365 days. Some people don't even have that. They have a month or something like that. But it was being able to know that I had that money calendar to be able to look at everything forward gave me that opportunity to be able to have those discussions. And we pulled it together. We're good. We're in a good standing. But now we can look at this next August. And then it was like, hey, we're going to lose now this year 23 kids. How are we going to supplement that? How are we going to get creative with it? So we had discussions, and then now we're like, hey, this is what we're going to add to our program to be able to supplement that. And having those discussions, that's the buy-in.
Yeah, you're looking at things from a forecasting perspective where, you know, so many times leaders, when these things happen, they're so caught off guard. And I'm like, it's usually something you could have forecasted and planned for a little bit better. But what typically happens is something like this goes on, and then they're like, we have to cut every single expense. And then they start cutting things that actually could be detrimental to the company's survival and their ability to actually capitalize on further opportunities for strategic growth, which is one of the gears, right? Because you choked one area of resources because you didn't plan properly, or because you're panic pivoting, like not even necessarily like you didn't plan properly, you're just panic pivoting because you're not getting perspective. You're not actually consulting with wise counsel and saying, help me see this differently, right?
Yeah.
So I'd love to talk about time constraints for a minute, because time is always it's the most precious resource, right? And so many leaders struggle with time. And so how have you been able to implement so many new frameworks and systems inside of your center, from the program with all of your existing responsibilities? You have children, you're married, you've got a lot of stuff going on in your life beyond the school.
Yeah. So I think a big chunk of it for me is I just have to realize that there's different seasons, and trying to kind of accept, like right now we're doing a big hiring push. Usually every 3 months we have to do a hiring push because that's just kind of where we're at with our part-time staff. Like we have college students and stuff like that. So their schedules change. We're preparing for summer schedules and all of that stuff. People heading off to they're going back to Colorado to go live with their family for the summer. So right now I'm working a lot. I've had that discussion with my kids. I've had that discussion with my husband. We kind of understand for this month of March, mom is probably not going to be there as often. Having that discussion, we all understand. When April comes around, we will have more staff. The staffing will be up and rolling. Mom will be back around. And I think having that acceptance is a really big piece of it. And just kind of understanding it's not going to be forever. Understand the season that you're in, and then make sure that you're going back to those normal kind of routines and getting back into that. Managing the calendar right now. Again, my calendar, I think this week I have already done 14 interviews, and that's 3 days into the week. And Monday, I didn't get to do any of them. So it's really just kind of managing that up and down and making sure that we're being as efficient with the time that we have, but also like making sure that there is time for the fact that like Monday I had 4 interviews scheduled and I had to cancel them because we had 5 call outs. So usually what I try to make sure is I have at least 2 days of my week that I don't have anything scheduled, and then I can end up filling in those gaps.
I find when I think of leaders that consider making investments in coaching or consulting or training, is there's a part of them that wants to say yes, and there's a part of them that says, what if this doesn't work? What if this is another hack? What if I don't have time? What if I'm not going to actually apply every single thing, right? And so we have this desire to grow, and then our brains immediately shut it down and say, it's too good to be true. It's not going to happen. And so I'm sure you've had all of those thoughts also at, different times throughout the journey, because the other thing I want to share also with Bri, who was talking about seasons, is when people initially join schools of excellence, they have a lot of wins right when they join. And then things kind of taper out a little bit, where you're not having a win every single week. You're learning how to stabilize and create capacity for the next big things. And that is typically when people check out. They're like, oh, I'm not winning all the time, so this program must not be good for me. And they're not recognizing that being in the container is what is creating sustainability for the next evolution. So I'd love to hear your perspective and experience in relation to that of what I was just sharing.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is just realizing you're going to invest in something, and you have to realize that that investment has to be long term. It's not going to be something that is instantly going to always give you that gratification. It's not like we're sitting here, we're watching Bitcoin be super duper volatile. It's not always going to be something that's going to be set up in that manner. And I think that when you get into business, you have to kind of have that mentality of I'm going to win some and I'm going to lose some. But when I lose some, I'm always learning. So even if I jump into this and I'm investing this money, I am going to learn something regardless. And if I can wrap my head around the fact that that knowledge is something that is truly priceless, I can attach that number to that value. And I can understand that I'm getting something out of it. For me, ultimately, knowledge is something that I consistently thrive on, or I crave. I always want to learn more. I am a total geek. I want to just absorb as much as I possibly can. And honestly, right now I'm feeling super guilty because I feel like I haven't been able to pour as much in and learn as much as I have wanted to because of the season that we're in with the center. So it's one of those where I kind of have that moment where I'm like, oh gosh, I wish I could be getting more. I wish I could be getting more. But I also have to sit here and think that no, I also want to be able to pour into my staff and have that mindset of that growth and that expansion of my team. It doesn't even necessarily have to be to more centers or anything like that. Like I want to be able to pour into them, to be able to create more positions, to be more financially stable so that I can give raises. I can do these different things. And without having those 5 years or being able to zone in on those very precise things, which I have gotten from the coaching and from somebody being able to simply tell me, like, you can't be the master problem solver and actually be a great leader. Yeah. I wouldn't have been able to have that. And I've gotten that by investing and having somebody give me the shortcut.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the other thing, which is so powerful in what you're sharing, is like when we invest in something, society almost programs our brain in an instant gratification world that every single investment has to immediately have a direct ROI. That's part of being in a capitalist society, which again has good, pros and cons. It's part of being in the greatest economy in the world, in America, that's so, in the consistent pursuit of economy expansion, et cetera. And there's so many beautiful parts to that of growth and expansion and opportunity. Let's open another location and let's open this thing where, in Europe, it's not like that, right? Where it's like, oh, we have a beautiful restaurant and we have a beautiful restaurant. In America, you have a great restaurant. Okay, now let's open 7 more restaurants, right? So there's so much beauty to that. And then it can also F with our minds, because the moment we're in an investment or a container or a program and our brains aren't immediately interpreting immediate ROI, we're like, I shouldn't be investing in that. I shouldn't be paying for that. Where there's containers and seasons where we pull certain things out of certain things, and constantly trying to zap the juice out of every single thing to its maximum capacity is actually not living. It's not living. Yeah. Do you know Tom Bilyeu? Anyways, he has a podcast called Impact Theory, and he shares this story that hit me in the gut. He was in the early days of his marriage, and he had booked a hotel, which he really couldn't afford so much, but his wife really wanted to go away for the anniversary. So they booked this really fancy hotel. And anyways, he took off work, all the things. And check-in was at 4:00 or something like that. So at 3:00, but when they were ready to leave, his wife wanted to sit down for tea in the house. And he's like, what are we sitting down for tea? We got to get to the hotel. We got to check in. And anyways, they got into this huge fight. And basically he was like, I wanted to maximize every second in that hotel. And my wife just wanted intimacy. She just wanted connection. And really the whole point of the hotel stay was connection. And so I feel like this is such a huge part of leadership, like understanding, like, what are you trying to maximize? And this really leads me into my next question of like, where have you been able to level up your discernment as a leader where you're like, okay, like that's enough. We don't have to power through there anymore. Like, I'm curious. I know you have so many, so I'm curious.
Yes. So I used to be the person where I was like total world domination. Like I want 5 centers in 5 years. And I think that I just really like have zoned that back in. And it's like, nope, I am fine with my one program. Like I am happy with my one program. I am good. I want the quality over quantity. And I truly want to make sure that what we have here, we do not lose. I want to grow the people inside of this building. And when I say like growth and development and the availability to like expand, that is what I'm talking about. I want to expand the people inside of here. I want to give them more opportunities. I want to give the families more opportunities. I want to give my admin team more opportunities. So I think that that's probably been like the biggest shift in all of it, is just kind of that, like that joy and that piece of like, hey, I have everything that I could possibly want. Like, that's not saying that something might not change in 10 years or something like that, but I'm happy with where we're at. And that's what I figured out as my true purpose. I feel like we have this little island of misfit toys. And I always tell people in my interviews, I was like, if you lined us up and you looked at all of us, you would look and you'd be like, that makes no sense. Like, there's no way that company would work, because we have all different demographics. We have all different types of people, and it flows so well. And I mean, there's always the things that are going to come up, ups and downs, but there's just a sense of respect and a sense of community. And I think that that's the part that really is so relieving and happy to me. And I think that that's the part where that's what I now cling to. And I remember I was going through and I was listening to an audiobook, and it's called The Little Giants. And it was talking about how you have all of these businesses where it's like, hey, we're going to get bigger. We're great at this. So we're going to go to 50 stores instead of just the one store. And it was talking about how these businesses decided to stay small. They didn't expand and they didn't expand. And I think that that was such a great book for me to listen to, because then I was able to really figure out like, hey, it's okay to do this. You don't have to continue to try and get bigger and to get bigger and bigger. Like, you can be happy with staying small. And I remember in business school, they talked about the fact that a lot of businesses, the time that they start to fail is when they don't have enough capital because they get too big too fast. And that's not something that I ever want to like end up seeing, because I don't want to ever jeopardize like what we have here, because these people mean way too much.
Oh my God, I have so much to reflect back here. Okay, this is so beautiful. And I feel like this is a combination of like storytelling and coaching and just everything kind of all in the moment. So there's this beautiful line, and I don't know who said it. So hopefully I could find it and give that person credit. But there's no amount of playing small that will protect you from the challenges that God has in store for you, right? And the reason I'm bringing that up here is because sometimes people make a decision to play small because they don't want the challenges or the roadblocks that come with being big and that come with just being in the public eye. The difference in what you're choosing is you're not choosing small because you're afraid of the challenge or you're afraid of the thing. You're choosing intentionality within what you've decided to create here. And that's such a different level of purpose, of meaning, and of finding joy literally in this moment and not constantly delaying gratification. So I want to reflect that back to you just for a moment, because it doesn't mean you don't have challenges, right?
Yes.
And the other piece here is that I know that you had shared in the beginning of the call that you're, hyper focused on the financial gear, and you are. However, I'm also hearing a lot of staff culture initiatives that are happening because you're focused on creating cohesion within the team and improving outcomes. And you're really, passion is the wrong word. There's this real alignment with the development of your team.
Yes. Yeah. And I almost feel like with the staff culture, that's not even something that I would even consider a gear, because I just think that that's something that's so ingrained in us.
It's in maintenance mode. It's in strategic maintenance mode always, because you've created those great systems. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that's always kind of been a focus of our admin team, is because we really want to make sure that we have that retention and we have that team building. And we even teamwork is one of our core values. Like, that is a huge piece of it, and that accountability piece. And I think that is a true testament our culture and the longevity of it and the longevity of our staff members is truly a testament to what that admin team does and what they do on the capabilities of with the staff and how they support them. And it is absolutely phenomenal.
What's a final story you would want to share that really encapsulates your evolution as a leader over the past, 2.5 years?
Gosh. Ooh. I feel like we kind of like touched on it with talking about like wanting this total world domination and like wanting like that huge growth. And I mean, right when we opened our first building, we attempted to open another center at that same exact time. That lasted for about 6 months. And we had a huge financial loss when that ended up happening. And I think that was kind of a reality check in that moment, but I didn't fully grasp how to learn in that. And I think by growing our admin team and really kind of putting the right people in the right places and finding the people and hiring for the things that I'm not great at. Like I needed to hire my executive director because she's my people person. Like she can walk into the room, she can read the room. She understands, hey, this person needs this person needs this person needs this. And I'm like, oh, everybody was smiling. So I thought they were all great. I needed my director in our nursery care building because she's the detail-oriented person. If I post the schedule, there's 75 things wrong. She doesn't have any mistakes. She does our files phenomenally. Like it's hiring all of those people that are fantastic at all of those gaps. And I think that probably realizing that keeping that core group of people and hiring for those weaknesses and realizing that small can still be fantastic and can still be great is probably the biggest piece to it.
I feel like you really have entered a place of such internal peace and relief. And you're operating, you make decisions from a place of peace, not from hustle. You make decisions from a place of what will create expansiveness inside of my heart and my soul and my family, not what will constrict me and what will feed my ego. So the filter and the lens and the quality of decision making that you operate from is more than a 360. It's a giant world change. And you can see that in the quality of life that you've created for yourselves, for your family. So I like to end with this piece here of we have so many different types of leaders inside of our companies, right? People are running, 1 center, 5 locations, 6 nonprofits, for-profits, Montessori, like Reggio inspired, faith-based, like there's so many. Who are you speaking to right now that you have a message for them, whoever's listening or watching this conversation?
I think you kind of nailed it when you talked about like we're operating from a place of not ego. I think before it was I want to be the business owner because I want people to finally accept that I'm capable of doing something, where now we're finally operating from a place of I'm operating this business because I'm here to serve my staff and serve the community and serve the people. And I want to speak to the people who have always had that drive to be able to help people, but almost kind of had that chip on their shoulder. Like I've got something to prove. I've got something to prove. You have nothing to prove. Go out, find your people, find the ones who are going to help build something that is going to be great for everybody involved, not just something that is going to fill you up inside or fill that ego or make you think that you're doing something fantastic. Because at the end of the day, I don't need credit for any of this because the reality is I couldn't have done any of this without the team. I would be sitting here in an empty building with mountains of debt if I would have attempted to do this by myself. All of the credit goes to all of them because they did the hard work.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think it's such a beautiful way to wrap up this conversation for the person who's listening who, who's just hustled their whole life, hustled for worth, hustled for attention, hustled to prove that they are enough. What Bri's really sharing here is you're enough right now. And so really step into that greatness and just and pursue that, and pursuing it in a container where you have friendship and mentorship and all of those things is so powerful. I actually do want to just ask you on the friendship piece and relationships within the community, if you can share even just one story of how that's enhanced your life.
Yeah, I think that when you get into a position in business ownership, it can be very kind of lonely. There's a lot of stress that gets added to stuff. And I think by having that community and just having those people, even when it comes from just like the coaching perspective of just having that extra person to be able to be like, hey, I need to be able to talk through this. And I need somebody who understands it from like the financial stress or like the extra stress of like, hey, this is what's going on with my staff. This is what's going on with this part of it. Just having that one extra person who gets it on a different level, I think is something that is absolutely imperative. And that's another piece that I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand. Some of the people that I have met through this, they live in other states, but I can have conversations with them about this that I would not be able to have with anybody that I could sit with at dinner. Have that same level of conversating. It's not something that I can go have a conversation with my mom because my mom's not going to understand it. Or I can go have with a different friend because they're not going to understand it at that same exact level, where having that person who understands from the same industry itself that has a whole different set of challenges than a lot of other entrepreneurs I think is invaluable.
I love it. I love it. This has just been such a great conversation. So thanks for joining me.
Yes, thank you.